Welcome back
to the Whiskey and Wisdom podcast.
This is yet another episode of the Surf City Chronicles. Today, you have your constant co-host, Chris Kellum, and I'm with
Tyler Y'all.
And our special guest,
Erik Shirley.
Thanks for coming on and introducing us to this awesome place that's obviously currently under construction. It's also a very first for the Whiskey and Wisdom podcast.
Oh, is it really first time on a construction site?
Exactly.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I'm surprised this is the first, but not.
I was going to say.
I mean, technically, our studio was in a construction site for a while.
Yeah, but you couldn't see it.
Yeah.
But this is a much cooler
This is
construction site.
Very much under construction.
Right.
Yeah.
I love it.
We have dirt piles around us, which makes
Exactly.
it even more fun.
So, because it's a construction site, unfortunately, we're not allowed to be imbibing. So, Tyler, what are you drinking?
I brought some Pure Tide water, so we're going to keep it local here. So one of our past guests, Tyler Williams, is the owner of Pure Tide, and he is all about making sure you are not drinking your water in plastics because you don't need any more microplastics in your body than what we already have. So if you're in that Surf City Topsail area, he will actually drop off these not plastic bottles, but glass bottles to your house, just like the old milkman used to. And that way you're having fresh water straight to your house. And he just came up with a brand new mineral blend, which is what we've been trying today and keeping us hydrated while we're out on the construction site.
He's a great guy as well. He's doing an awesome thing with that project.
Yeah.
So, tell us about yourself and how we ended up in this great spacey.
Sure. So my name's Erik Shirley. I've lived in Surf City for about 8 years now. And one of my companies, Four Oaks Capital Development Group, came up with this concept of basically bringing family entertainment to this area. You know, we felt as locals, we were driving all the way out to Wilmington or Jacksonville every single weekend, whether it was for a birthday party or a rainy Sunday, just trying to find something to do. And we felt like there was a huge unmet need for this type of product in this market. And so one of my good friends and business partners, Frankie Williams, he and I over lunch started sketching out the idea on the back of a napkin. And here we are sitting on the dirt looking to open in October. So
Awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be a 40,000 square foot family entertainment center anchored by 16 lanes of bowling.
Wow.
We'll have a 2-story laser tag arena, projection darts, projection axe throwing, 2 multi-sport simulators, full restaurant and bar, 65 arcade games, 3-story climbing tower for the kids, ropes course in the ceiling, and then a 4,000 square foot beer garden outside to top it all off.
That's awesome.
So yeah, truly something for everyone.
Yeah, one-stop shop for sure.
That's the goal, yeah.
So to kind of go backwards a little bit before we come forwards,
Sure.
how'd you get involved with Four Oaks Capital, and kind of how did that come about before we got to where we are now?
Yeah, so I don't want to go too far back, but I need to for the origin of kind of how all this came about. I was a collegiate swimmer at the College of Charleston, and while I was still in school, my roommate and I started flipping houses. And we flipped about 35 homes while we were still in college.
Oh, wow.
And that kind of transitioned from house flipping into residential buy and hold for rentals. And then I built up a fairly robust residential portfolio, and it just was not achieving the goals I wanted to achieve long term. I had a 9-to-5 along the way. And in medical device sales, I was in gynecologic surgery for the better part of 15 years.
Okay.
And so I really started exploring other options in housing. And so I launched Four Oaks Capital with a good friend of mine, Brian Mallon, up in New Jersey about eight and a half years ago now. And it started with apartment complexes. We bought our first apartment complex in Spartanburg, South Carolina. And we kind of slowly built that and built the capital raising side of it. And ended up with a little over 2,000 doors in 8 years.
Wow.
Raised over $100 million in that time frame. And it showed us that, hey, this is how this sector of the world works, right? We had never been exposed to that. So COVID was pretty tough in the multifamily world. There was a CDC eviction moratorium where you couldn't evict tenants. And for better or for worse, I think the intent behind that was great, but it unfortunately led to a lot of people stopping paying rent for the wrong reasons. And that mentality changed that entire landscape. So we started to divest some of that product about 3 or 4 years ago and launched our developmental arm.
Okay.
Doing commercial and residential subdivisions, commercial complexes, and then we have an experiential product arm, which that family entertainment falls under that experiential product. recreation complex, sports complexes. So that's kind of the world that we're living in today. So that's a long-winded answer, but that's how we got here.
Sweet. So the nerdy business side of me. So will you also be managing the day-to-day of it as well? Or are you going to have a management company coming in?
So we will, unlike multifamily where you have a third-party management company,
Right.
we will have a management team underneath our umbrella, but it will be underneath our umbrella.
Okay.
So we'll have a GM, an AGM, we'll have a kitchen manager, a bar manager, and then we'll have an owner's rep that essentially represents us on this. This is our flagship location, but the ultimate goal is to build somewhere between 10 and 20 of these over a 5 to 6 state radius over the next decade. Wow. So we've already started the hunt for land for number 2.
Yeah.
And we're off to the races.
That's incredible.
So, well, thank you. We're proud of it, and we think it's such an awesome industry to the whole goal of this industry is making people happy, right?
Yeah.
Bringing joy. And there's not a lot of industries that's the goal. And so we think that's cool.
Yeah. I'm happy that it stinks that it's taken so long for this part of the state to get something like this, but I think it's the right time.
I would agree. I think, for those of you that aren't super familiar with Surf City, we've doubled our population 3 times in the last 5 years.
Wow.
Our median age is around 37, almost 3 kids per household, and a mean household income over 100,000. So it's prime, it's ripe, and there's just nothing else here. The beach is amazing, and I'm a surfer. I live, right at the beach. That's my home away from home. But the reality is, for a lot of people in the transient aspect that come in, rent a house for a week, they're sunburned by day 2, they're hungover by day 3, and they're looking for something to do that has some air conditioning.
That's true.
So that's where we hope to fill that void and kind of fill that niche.
I was just going to say it is the perfect timing too, because if it was even, like you said, 5 years ago, like 40,000 square feet might have been a little bit too soon to the races.
Yeah, 100%. And so much of this with this kind of product is right sizing it for the local demographics, right? So like just for easy sake, Jacksonville right up the road with a younger Marine population, being as family oriented, not that family wouldn't be important there, but having more thrill things like go-karts or, you're really catering the size and the attraction base to the demographics of that market. So while this is 40,000 square feet, our next location might only be 23,000 square feet.
Yeah.
But the goal is to be the king of what we call the B market, right? A market that's big enough to sustain the business model, but small enough that someone would be foolish to come in and try to build a competing product.
True, yeah.
So that's kind of our strategy with this whole rollout.
Nice.
No, that makes sense, especially like from a business standpoint. Tyler loves talking about finances, but I talk to Brittany and Tyler all the time about like just random different business models and like different ideas. And this is one of the things that I don't think a lot of people think about is this market pre-saturated or oversaturated? I guess pre-saturated is not really a thing, but
unmet need.
Yes,
right.
Yes. I'm like, do we need that here?
Sure.
And I think there's a lot of things that this area can pick up and maintain, which is really good.
So it's interesting. I'm the chair of the Surf City Economic Development Committee. One of the things we talk about constantly is where are our pain points? Everyone needs restaurants, but if you're building a restaurant, you just have to build a better mousetrap because you have competition, right? But there's so much that we need here that we travel 45 minutes to an hour to get. We don't have a dry cleaners. We have to drive all the way to Wilmington or Jacksonville for a dry cleaner. Childcare. There's no daycares really around here. So it's the little things that it's very easy to take for granted in a larger market that we get stuck, putting in the time to get to. And those are, to your point, I think the successful entrepreneurs in this market can take advantage of those opportunities and fill those unmet needs and have tremendous success.
Yeah, that's kind of what we've noticed just for the past 2 years of doing this kind of travel up to the Topsail Surf City area is the people that make it the best are the ones that see that unmet need and take the first step.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of unmet need here, so there's a lot of opportunity. I'm sure, I don't know when this will air, but when you drive over the bridge all the way down to kind of the Publix here in Surf City on 210-50, there's 7 or 8 new construction sites coming.
Right.
And we've got a Cape Fear Seafood coming, a Starbucks, an oil change place, a new hotel. So, it's prime time for Surf City, and we're growing to the detriment in some people's mind. But at the end of the day, the growth is coming. So it's how do we right size the product and how do we control the growth as a community to try to encourage the right businesses to come in and not a lot of other Me Too's.
Right. I know for especially these type of areas, because like I'm from Leland, they also are kind of like slow. Like, they're growing really fast, but they don't really like the type of growth that's happening there. It is what it is, right? And you have to be where the people are at and meet them where they're at. So I guess that's a long way of asking the question. I know in some areas people are hesitant for a brand new construction site. In my mind, I think this is perfect for this area. Have you come against some people that are like, I don't know if I want something that large here?
It's not necessarily the size. I think we have had overwhelmingly positive feedback from the community. Yeah. There's always naysayers. The biggest complaint we've gotten as to what this will bring to the area is the traffic. Traffic is already a challenge, and the reality is, for whatever reason, there's one way in and one way out, and that's what we have to work with. And so it is what it is. I think that anytime you're building a project, you have to look at the upside, right? And so we look at this as infrastructurally, Surf City has some challenges that we're working on. And so a lot of the naysayers that complain about a project like this, they also complain about other things like infrastructure. And, infrastructure costs money. Right. Well, the way to raise money is either raise taxes or businesses come in so that the tax revenue goes to the town. Yep. So it's like, you can't have it both ways. And we try to look at the positive aspects of it we're filling an unmet need in the community while simultaneously bringing a project in that can have real tax implications in a positive way for the town to help with some of those infrastructure challenges.
Right. I think that's one of, I never think about that as a normal person is, gosh, this road is 2 lanes and there's so much traffic on it. And why didn't they think to expand it, when they saw it? And people, I don't think realize how much information has to be gathered and how much money has to be collected before they can start doing that. Like, this road is definitely needs to be a 4-lane with all the traffic that comes into it, but then you're taking away more stuff, you're adding more construction, and there's no way they're going to finish that in the slow season around here.
Sure. Well, and just logistically, it's not achievable because you're still going to have a bottleneck at the bridge on both sides. So it's one of those things of it's a growing pain, but it happens in every market ever. At the end of the day, the beach is a highly sought out, amenity, and traffic is going to be there, for better or for worse.
Yep. So when this is all finished here, I know you still have a few months to go.
Yep.
What are you most excited about?
Wow, that's a great question. I think one of the things I'm most excited, and you hear the construction in the background there, but one of the things I'm most excited about is the legacy I'm leaving for my kids in this community. We moved here 8 years ago from Columbia, South Carolina, and this community and this place changed my family's life for the better. To be able to raise our kids here, the people in this community are amazing. The town is awesome. The recreation programs here are awesome. So there's so much good that the town has done for us. So to bring a project that fills an unmet need, that will thrive in this community, that we can be proud of, that's what I'm most excited about is giving something back to the community as almost a repayment of what it's done for my family.
That's awesome. What brought you up here from Columbia, South Carolina?
Yeah, so I'm born and raised in Columbia. My parents are still there. My sister's still there. And we always said we wanted to retire at the beach. And then we came and visited a buddy of mine that lived on the island in November of 2016, fell in love with it, and literally went home, put our house on the market, bought a house here, and we were here in January of 2017. Oh, wow. So within 3 months, that's how much of an impact this place had on us. So
that's neat.
There's something special about Surf City. It still has that small town feel despite the growth, and it's just a really cool community.
That's kind of neat hearing you say that from the South Carolina perspective, because we just got back from Surf City Smash down the road, and so George came down from New York, but still a very similar story where he came down to visit and just fell in love with it. It's like, hey, we're moving, we're going down there. We don't know where we're living yet, but we're coming down.
And we hear a lot of that. It's funny. So there's a lot of that in this community. Obviously, we have a lot of MARSOC folks here and a lot of guys from the military base up in Jacksonville. But one thing that I think is unique about this project that I do want to touch on is we raise capital for a living. That's what our parent company does. when we had this project, we could have gone to our traditional investor network and raised all the money. We decided to try to do things a little bit differently. So we had a dinner and we offered shares to this business on the capital raising front locally. And we raised 100%, a little over $5 million, 100% local in Surf City.
Wow.
Which I think is a huge testament
massive.
to the buy-in from the community and people wanting to be a part of something that not everyone can say, and I'm one of them that can't say it. I didn't have $15 million in my back pocket to go and build a family entertainment center.
Yeah, no.
I went to the bank and they would have laughed me out, laughed me out of the bank. So when we brought these people together, everyone was like, wow, I can have essentially fractional ownership of a facility where I can go in with my family and not only support it, but be proud when family comes in to visit or friends come in to visit, be like, we're part owners in that. And I think that's such a cool opportunity and a cool mentality that we were able to bring this community as well.
Yeah, that is really neat. And especially, I'm not sure we talked about it on this podcast yet, but like Surf City and the surrounding areas isn't massive.
No.
So for having such a small community base to pull that type of capital out of and have that type of backing, that says a lot. That's really neat.
It's been so well received in that capacity, and frankly, we're a little bit behind construction. We were hoping to open in June. Normally, in my previous investments where we've raised capital, if you're behind the 8 ball, you're hearing about it on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Time is money, and just the understanding of people saying, "Look, we want to do this right. Let's get it done. Let's, for us, we wanted to open originally before 4th of July, originally Memorial Day timeframe.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We would have been thrown to the wolves.
Yeah.
To open in peak season a facility like this, you need to work out the kinks, and you want to make sure everyone has a great experience. And so to be able to do that in the off season, everyone's been so supportive of that. Let's get it right, so that when the throngs of people come in, we're a well-oiled machine, and because you only get one first impression.
Yeah. I guess the other benefit to the investors too that are local is they get to come in and enjoy it on their own before they have everyone else kind of slam packed and everything too.
Yeah, well, and again, I said it earlier, but I think it's a testament to that unmet need of people said, "Oh my gosh, we need this so badly," and then to have a chance to be a part of it on top of that, like it's a great opportunity.
Yeah. So I'm gonna ask. I have 2 questions.
Sure.
For this concept, how did you figure out what you wanted to put into it? Because there's so many different options.
Yep.
And 2, why didn't you go for go-karts?
Space. So we're on 5 acres. Our stormwater retention pond had to be an acre. An acre's about 43,000 square feet. And needless to say, for a facility this size, you need a tremendous amount of parking. So knowing all of that, it was just space constraints. We may or may not have tried to buy some of the adjacent parcels unsuccessfully for future expansion opportunities. But as far as what went in the facility, believe it or not, there's a tremendous amount of science that went into this.
Okay.
So first and foremost, my company has always abided by a motto of twofold. But primarily, if I'm the smartest guy in the room, I'm in the wrong room. I know what I know really, really well, but I have the humility to know what I'm not good at. And this is a space we've never entered. So we went out and found the best in the space. And so we hired a guy out of New Jersey named Jerry Marola. He's been doing this for 35 years. He's built over 300 of these as a consultant.
Wow.
So he has the knowledge. So we brought him in a consultatory fashion. He's been with us from inception through construction, and will be with us for 2 to 3 years in a consultatory fashion during the operational side. And Jerry just knows what works and what markets and with what demographics, looking at transient population versus repeat local business, and really looking at every aspect of it. So we had very little say in what went into this. We could have vetoed some things, but why go against, the master? But some of the science, like I'll give you an example. Bowling, you rent the lane by the hour.
Yeah.
So there's studies that have been done that if you serve the first drink to a patron within the first 5 minutes of that hour, there's a 92% likelihood they'll have 3 drinks instead of 2.
Wow.
When you look at the margin on F&B, that's a tremendous, that third beverage is a tremendous profit margin for the facility. So, knowing that and making sure we laid things out of, where is the kitchen and the bar in conjunction to that? How can our wait staff navigate that to be able to capitalize on that? Same thing with the food side, right? Like if someone orders a pizza 45 minutes into their 1 hour bowling lane and they get their pizza right at the time that they're getting kicked off, not kicked off, but that their hour at bowling is up.
Yeah.
You know, you have an unhappy patron that's like, man, what the heck? I just bowled, ordered food, and now you're pushing me along.
Yeah.
So the timing of everything is so paramount and important. The 3-story climbing tower that I mentioned for younger kids, we found that through some market surveys, families don't leave when the oldest kid is tired. They leave when the 3-year-old or the 4-year-old is having a rough time. Well, there's not a ton of stuff here for 3 and 4-year-olds. So we said, we need an attraction catered to that age group to keep people here longer. The longer they're here, inherently, the more money they'll spend.
Yeah.
So not to be a capitalistic pig, but at the end of the day, you know, this isn't a nonprofit. We're here to make a buck, and we have a fiduciary responsibility to our investors and shareholders. So I think that the amount of science that went into the layout, the attraction base, everything was really, it's not just throw some things in and people will come.
Right.
There was a tremendous amount of thought and effort and time that went into meticulously planning every single aspect of this.
That's amazing. When you typically walk into a building, you don't think too much of like, hey, where's everything at and why is it spread out the way that it is? But it is amazing to have someone come in with that type of experience and help kind of lay that out. So I guess that leading up to this question, do you walk into other entertainment spaces and now with that science mindset going, why did they do this or that should be better?
100%, yeah. It's funny. This is a close-knit community of people. You know, there's only a handful of entertainment centers throughout the country.
Right.
So we've had the privilege of going down, you know, we've been to Tampa, Florida, Madison, Wisconsin, Orlando, Florida. We've been to Raleigh. So we've seen a lot of other facilities and met with the ownership groups. And the generosity of time and knowledge was incredible. I mean, truly overwhelming. Of pulling back the curtain and saying, look, this is where we screwed up. We don't want you to make the same mistake.
Yeah.
This is something that we've done that's been tremendously successful. You know, have you thought about that? And so, you know, we're like sponges. We absorb it all and we try to make educated decisions based on our own facility. But yeah, it's funny when you walk in and you can immediately, within a matter of seconds, say, this is a slow pocket and here's why.
Okay.
So yeah, a great question.
That's neat. I guess you were talking about the community of like entertainment spaces.
Yeah.
I guess it does make sense for them to be a little bit more open than I guess other places because really there's no competition, right? And it's only going to be more synergistic if they can go to another entertainment place and have a good experience. Then when they do go to Tampa, like, hey, we had an awesome time up in Surf City. We should go to this one that's similar.
Yeah.
So I guess it does make sense that they want to build and like keep that a close-knit community.
Well, and even the referrals. So like we were in Wisconsin, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Okay.
Beautiful Madison, Wisconsin. Had my first cheese curd.
No way.
It was delicious. But a gentleman up there named Guy Kitchell owns a place called the Thrill Factory in Madison. And we were talking, and he was super candid and sharing some things with us. And he said, hey, guys, I've noticed on your Facebook page, you're crushing it on Facebook. I am struggling with social media. You know, what are you doing that I might not be seeing? And so we referred him to our social media team. They're now in conversations where he's looking to hire them in as consultants.
Oh, wow.
So it's with the rising tide lifts all ships.
Yeah.
And we even embrace that approach here in the community. So some of our investors are local businesses.
Right.
You know, we have partnerships with Salty Turtle, Louders Furniture, Sundial Coffee and Tea, Hidden Chips, where it's like, look, we have an opportunity here where we could use US Foods or Cisco for our coffee and tea, but why not partner with a local business who's invested in us? We're going to turn around and invest in you. And now Sundial Coffee and Tea are coffee and tea purveyors for the facility.
Wow, that's awesome.
Louders Furniture's, all of our outdoor furniture in the beer garden is going to be Louders Furniture. So it's that community mentality of like, we're not competing with each other. Let's look for those synergistic opportunities to lift everyone up so we can all thrive.
High tides and good vibes.
That's it.
And it's something I've definitely seen in this area for sure, because usually we're going to an area and it's very, very competitive across the board. But every time we come up here, everyone is shouting out their neighbor because they're actually good people.
Yeah.
They're helping out. They're like, oh, hey, no, we were over here and they did a great job. They shouted us out. They put up this. We were at Surf City Smash, and he was like, yeah, we were just down at Hidden Chips, and they shouted us out for food. And I was like, That's what you want. Like,
Talk us into going to Salt Marsh and getting ice cream sandwiches.
Those are delicious.
They
Oh my
are.
God.
Yeah.
George used to have those actually
That's
before
what
the
he was
cheesesteaks.
saying. Yeah.
So it's such a community feel, and look, it's a small town, so we frequent the same. George and I were talking about this podcast today because I knew he was going to be on it this morning.
Yeah.
We go to the same chiropractor, so yesterday morning we're having therapy next to each other. So like you see these people out and about in the community. George has a restaurant background, so he's been super helpful with us of like, hey, have you thought about doing this with your hood? Have you thought about so it's how do we look, no one's going to monopolize the F&B market in this town.
Right.
So how do we work together and be like, hey, we had this menu, so-and-so has this menu. If you're craving that, go check these guys out. They're awesome. They do a great job, have a great product. We believe so strongly in that mentality.
Yeah. No, I love that.
So what is the food and beverage menu going to look like when it opens up, or do you know yet?
Yeah, no, we do. We have an amazing F&B consultant who's going to be coming on as our owner's rep. It's going to be bar food with a flair.
Okay.
So anytime you have an arcade and bowling and things like that, you can't. It's not really a fork and knife establishment, if you will.
Right.
We're not having a 40-ounce porterhouse or whatever it is. So we're going to have bar food with a flair. So craft burgers, craft pizzas, some great sandwiches. Our appetizer menu's going to be amazing. We call them shareables.
Oh, yeah.
Things that you'll have at like a bowling lane where everybody can reach in.
It's the perfect
Grab.
size versus
Exactly.
that like they only give you 4 chicken tenders
Yes.
and you're like,
Exactly.
These are mine.
Yes.
Especially Chris.
So the food's going to be amazing. Our menu and everything's house made. The sauces are all house made.
Okay.
It's the little touches that I think elevate. A burger can be a burger. Our meat mix, for lack of a better term, between sirloin, wagyu, all those things is impeccable. But it's the sauces and the fresh produce and the things that really, in my mind, help elevate it. The bun.
they really do.
Right.
Yeah, like people don't think about the bun, but a bun can make or break a burger.
True.
That's what I learned this morning.
Yeah,
Right.
French fries, another thing, your sides.
Yes.
So there's a lot of thought being put into that. Craft cocktails.
Yeah.
We want to have high-end spirits. So you can have your house liquors, obviously, but it's important to us. I'm a Scotch and tequila guy.
Oh, nice. Okay.
There's not a ton of places around here where you can go in and get a good high-end, Scotch or tequila.
Correct.
And especially with the vacation market coming here, when you go on vacation with the intention of spending money.
Yeah.
Right.
So try something new. So we're going to have a robust selection, some really cool craft cocktails that we're excited about. And then from a local beer standpoint, a Salty Turtle being a partner.
Right.
We're going to have 3 proprietary beers from Salty Turtle that we're going to have on draft.
Nice.
Sweet.
So, we're big into the local products and working with Hidden Chips to have Hidden Chips product in there.
Yeah.
So that's kind of our methodology with everything. But, we really want everyone to have an elevated experience. We want the restaurant not to be like, oh, I'm bowling, let's eat because we're bowling. We want the restaurant to be like,
Coming to
Part
the
of the
restaurant.
like, I don't care if I'm going to bowl or not. I'm coming here to get a meal because the food's freaking awesome.
Nice.
So that's our thought process there.
Good. So, looking at life and time,
Yeah.
what does success look like for you in both aspects? One, for the business here, like High Ties, Good Vibes, but also in your traditional job.
Yeah, that's a great question. High Tides and Good Vibes, I think success looks like, establishing this flagship location and really being able to scale up and build the brand.
Okay.
I think in today's marketplace, brand is more important than anything.
Right.
I could go down a rabbit hole that I'll...
Right, Brittany?
Yeah, I think if you follow the chain of historical events, it used to be the radio, and then it was, the TV, and now it's the internet and social media. And so the consumption of the consumer of how they, I guess, absorb content,
Right.
we're in an attention-based society now.
Yep.
And so when you build the right brand, if someone says, hey, tell me something fun to do in the area to chat GPT or something, when you have a brand, it's pulling from that brand. And so you're feeding the algorithms and things like that, which gets really heady, but that's the way we're going.
Yep.
For me, success on a personal level is it really has nothing to do with business at all. It has to do with being a father and a husband. My girls are 12 and 10. I've got short time with them while they're still at home, and maximizing that time with them, creating opportunities for them whether they want to work in my businesses or they have the foundation that they see from what my wife and I have created with work ethic and, having a dream and making it come to fruition. Both my parents are elementary school teachers. I came from extremely humble beginnings. I built everything I have from the ground up, and just showing them that, for me, my success will come in the productivity of my children in society. And we work really hard on that as a family of, everything has to be earned. And that's what I'm focused on from a personal success standpoint.
That's fantastic. I like that answer a lot.
Oh, thank you.
So after looking forward a little bit, to take a look back, if you were to tell your younger self one thing, what would it be?
Oh, God. That's a hell of a question. That failure is okay. Everyone loves to win. I'm one of them.
Of course.
I hate losing more than I love winning.
Yeah.
But I have learned more from my failures and my losses. I've hit a point in my life where I don't worry about failing. I look for micro failures, right? Like I want to fail, but I want to fail small. I'm going to learn from my failures, but they can't be catastrophic failures at this point in my life. So it's really, I think something else I would have told my younger self is humility. Humility is so important, and candor. I think I learned humility fairly young. Candor is something I still struggle with, but I'm getting better. When you have employees, I'm a people guy, right? And the closer I get to people, the more I love them, just because I'm spending more time with them. I'm getting to know them on a personal level. And it's really hard for me to be candid with people that are important in my life. And so what happens is you have someone that's not performing at their job, but you're not able to convey that. So they think they're doing a great job because I fail at candor. Yeah. So I've really started, working on being candid with folks, and you can tell someone they're not doing a good job without being an asshole. Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And that was a learning lesson for me. So I think the last thing, and I say this to anyone younger, I'm 43 years old, anyone that's in their 20s or 30s, stop buying dumb shit to impress people that you don't really care about.
True.
I see these young people spending money on cars and Louis Vuitton bags and Gucci and just dumb shit that you're trying to impress people that you're either not going to know in 5 years or you're trying to impress them because you don't like them anyways and you're trying to flex on them. Like, don't do that. Put your money into assets, investments, and you'll have the last laugh in your 40s and 50s. True. But you don't need to flex with a BMW at 26 years old.
Very true, yeah.
It's four wheels and an engine.
Yep.
And I suffered from that as a younger kid. I had a Range Rover when I was 28 years old that, if you want the full story, got repoed.
Oh, no.
Because of a failure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I had no business being in that car. It was a flex trying to, look successful instead of actually being successful.
Yeah. That's fantastic. No, I love that advice too. So in the financial industry myself, so anytime that there's someone else that's spreading that news to anyone who feels that way is always welcomed. Yeah. So thank you.
Absolutely.
So, because you have an amazing social media presence.
Well, thank you.
How can people follow you guys?
Yeah, so our website is hightidesandgoodvibes.com. Our Facebook is High Tides and Good Vibes. Facebook at High Tides and Good Vibes. I don't know our Instagram handle. I should know that. I guarantee you it has something to do with High Tides and Good Vibes if I had to guess. But yeah, those are the best places to follow us. We update regularly. We have an amazing social media team that does a lot of good work. And Taylor Caruso, shout out to her.
Oh, yeah.
She does a great job.
We know Taylor.
Yeah, so I'd love to take credit for our social media success, but that's all her.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for letting us in here and hanging out with the Dirt Piles. This is awesome, and a happy first for us to be able to sit here with you.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, and for those listeners, come check out Surf City. There's a lot of good things happening here. You heard about George. You're going to hear about Hidden Chips later on. I say that as if you've already aired this, but chronologically. But no, good things happening in Surf City. Come check us out.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
We'll catch you guys in the next one. Cheers.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.